What's up everybody, my name is Vincent. Welcome to Cryptolution, where we talk about everything under the moon, the crypto universe. Today's Tuesday, June 30th. Now in today's video, a lot of people have been asking me, are Bitcoin runes in Ordinals at risk of this trend that's been going on regarding BIP-110? Now the reason this is sparked and why the conversation has emerged out of nowhere and why it's trending even more is because runes have actually consumed much of the Bitcoin transactions on the Bitcoin network. Roughly around 68 to even 70% on regular days, even on peak days, even up to 88%. It's kind of crazy. So there's a huge spike in runes activity, and that's caused the BIP-110 crowd to kind of come out of nowhere, even though they've been around for a while, to say, you know what, we're going to filter out runes and ordinals and censor them by having a soft fork. So in this video, I just want to kind of present all the data to you so that you can come up with your own consensus and conclusion at the very end of the video. So as the title says, Bitcoin runes versus BIP-110, separating fact from fear. That's the most important part. So let's dive deep into it. Let's not waste any time. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to join us on X. Please be careful with any scammers down in the comments below. I'll never reach you via WhatsApp, Telegram, direct messaging, or email. So please be careful and invest safely. Guys and girls, let's get right into it. So when you have a discussion regarding runes and ordinals versus BIP-110, the real actual argument is it's actually Bitcoin Core versus Bitcoin Knots. Bitcoin Core consumes roughly around 77% of the nodes on the Bitcoin network, while Bitcoin Knots at the time of this post, which was on April 30th of 2026, Knots have roughly 22%, and it hasn't really risen since then. They've been around for quite a while. And as you can see, there's a ton of other different type of nodes within this network, but we're not going to pay attention to that. Now, in terms of peak daily transactions on Bitcoin, 820,000 on peak days are all accumulated within runes. And then the rune fee contribution roughly is around 25%. So right now, Bitcoin Knots, in terms of their miner support, is around 0.73%. There's a reason that's really important, because they want to meet a threshold that's needed at around 55%. Now, you got to ask yourself, what is BIP-110 if you're not aware of it? What does it do? It basically caps transaction output to 34 bytes, restricts op return, which is what Bitcoin Core is all about, to 83 bytes. So they supposedly want to kill runes and ordinal inscriptions based on this model. It's framed as temporary, which is a 1-year soft fork. Now, originally, this was called BIP-444 back in October 2025, but was reassigned and rebranded. Then the author of that specific BIP-444, aka BIP-110, his name is Datham Om, and is absolutely championed by the Bitcoin Knot supporters and community. Now, in terms of the activation mechanism, the mandatory signaling phase, what they have targeted is between August 7th through 15th in 2026, and the block is 961632. Now, this requires 55% of miners in a single 2016 block difficulty period. But the problem is the current signal right now is roughly around 0.73%, and this actually has changed since the time of this post. So right now, major pools conspicuously absent from signaling, and we'll show you all the data. So the reason why BIP-110 and that crowd is trying to get rid of runes is because recently CryptoQuant, Glassnode, Coinbase, a lot of these different articles and analytic tools have just shared that Bitcoin rune transactions have consumed a lot of the Bitcoin network. So sometimes you'll see daily activity within rune transactions, as usual, around 600,000 transactions or higher. Again, peak days are usually around 820,000. Pretty big, right? So 25% of those shares are all Bitcoin fees that pay to the miners. This is now a 2-year high, the highest network activity since when runes came out in 2024. So right now, this purple section, that's non-monetary. That's runes and ordinals. See how large that is. See how much is consuming the Bitcoin network compared to economic monetary value. This is basically people sending, receiving Bitcoin. But because of Bitcoin ETFs, you're not seeing as much on-chain transactions or activities within just monetary transactions, if that makes any sense. Now, this slide is actually very important. I'm actually going to dive deeper into this. So right now, BIP-110 has no strong miner support, and this is actually very important. Now, at the time that I made this, it was roughly around 0.73%. So the reason that's important is because if you look at these blocks and look at the miner support, that's not that much. Now, let's dive deeper into that. So basically, we're looking right now at the miners. How many miners are supporting BIP-110? Basically, we're not seeing that many, roughly 2 to 3. So we have SOV, BIP-110, and Roughnecks. These are the ones that pretty much support it and have shown predominant support for it. And then there's other ones that actually have some presence like 234 Abolta, Burford Mining, Peer-to-Peer Money, but the thing is, you're not seeing a lot of support from the bigger miners such as FT Pool, Foundry USA, Ant Pool, Via Bitcoin, Spider Pool, Maro Pool. I mean, these are big miners in this specific field, and they're not even supporting it not once. And I'm going to share with you later on in the slide a founder of F2 Pool who is also one of the early Bitcoin miners out there. And at the time of this recording, you can still that there are only 3 blocks that have actually supported BIP-110. Look at all the other blocks. They're not really supporting this. And that's the problem that BIP-110 has, is that no one really believes this just based on my opinion in terms of miner support. Now, you got to ask yourself, how did we get here? How did we get to this point where Runes all of a sudden has come back, and also this emergence of this random community called BIP-110 trying to stir up a lot of the conversation around getting rid of Runes because of the resurgence of Runes? Well, as you know, Runes were born on April of 2024, so it absolutely consumed a lot of the block sizes within Bitcoin. And then you saw that in October 2025, there is the BIP-44 proposal. Then in the beginning of June, which is this month that we're in right now, Runes revival came back because we saw a lot of transaction volume within Bitcoin. And then all of a sudden you started to see more traction with BIP-110 because basically they see what's going on with Runes. And in a way, this is why people are putting a lot of pressure on BIP-110 because they want to see them either succeed or not succeed. Because they see what's going on with Runes. Runes have absolutely dominated. As you can see, this is the blue section right here. That's all Runes. The pink section is the BRC20 tokens, a different type of fungible token. This is also something I'm sure they want to get rid of, but it doesn't consume that much block space. And then there's this, which is the monetary transactions. That's like Bitcoin transactions. And right now, the BIP-110 activation window is roughly around August 7th through 15th. And right now it's projected to not actually go through just based on the traction that they have right now. Now, you got to ask yourself, how long has this been going on? So this has been going on for 3 years, okay? So for the past 3 years, there have been so many different filtering proposals versus the network adoption. And when I talk about filtering proposals, it isn't just Runes. This actually started in 2023 when Bitcoin Ordinals came out. When Bitcoin Ordinals, which are JPEGs on Bitcoin, aka like NFTs on Bitcoin, that's when this whole Bitcoin Knots community came out of nowhere and started wanting to get rid of Ordinals. So on January 2023, Ordinals launched, and then all of a sudden this person named Luke Dash Jr., who is a part of the Bitcoin Knots community, or I feel like he's like the leader of the Bitcoin Knots community, he called them a scam and an attack on Bitcoin. So obviously he was the one that started the opposition of Ordinals and Runes, or basically native assets on Bitcoin. Then in December of 2023, Luke Dash Jr. decided to deploy Bitcoin Knots V25 to the Ocean mining pool. But Bitcoin Core, which is the opposite of Bitcoin Knot, did not adopt the patch. Then all of a sudden, on April of 2024, Runes launched. Luke Dash Jr. also called Runes a 5-sector attack. It's crazy when Knots tried to configure and zero out op return. Ocean's own first post having blocked was 75% Runes activity. That was crazy. So it didn't stop Runes. And this is the cycle that we're seeing, right? The whole proposals are just not working. Then on October 2025, Bitcoin Core V30 removes the 83 byte op return cap entirely. So obviously this caused Luke Dash Jr. to go utterly insane, even called it utter insanity, right? This is regarding Bitcoin Core. So Core did not adopt the restrictions, and Knots continued to filter out independently. It just did not work. Then in October of 2025, the same month, BIP-444 came out, which was later renamed to BIP-110, proposed as a consensus soft fork rather than node level policy, aiming for network-wide enforcement. And now, as of August 2026, which is coming up in around a month or so, BIP-110 activation window arrives with 0.73% of miner support, well below the threshold needed for lock-in. Now that we already talked about the filtering proposals, let's talk about the network adoption, because adoption hasn't followed what these proposals have been doing. Because Bitcoin Core, used by the vast majority of nodes, has not merged inscription filtering code at any stage across the 3 years. Miners earn fees, revenue from Ordinals and Runes activity. Ocean itself actually mined Runes heavy blocks despite Luke Dash Jr.'s stated objections. Bitcoin Core V30 on October 2025 moved into the opposite direction, removing the upper-turn limit rather than tightening it. Knott's node share peak around 20% during the V30 debate, short of share needed to set network policy. So when you look at the pattern, what do you observe? Roughly every 12 to 18 months, a new filtering approach has been proposed. Node policy, a CVE filing, pool leveling filtering, and now a consensus soft fork, which is regarding the BIP-110. Each has seen limited adoption among miners of Bitcoin, exchanges, and even wallets, while Bitcoin Core has continued to support the unrestricted inclusion of Ordinals and Runes related transactions. BIP-110 is the fourth such proposal. Now, here's the thing that we need to understand why runes and ordinals matter so much to Bitcoin. It's because they are native assets to Bitcoin itself by its layer. It's not an L2, it's an L1 asset. So miners receive fees, as you know, every 4 years. Every time that there is a halving event for Bitcoin, their rewards get cut in half. And as you know, the miners are very important to keeping the network of Bitcoin secured and decentralized. So when the rewards are getting cut in half, why should they stay around? So this is sometimes why some of these miners decide, you know what, I'm not going to stick with Bitcoin. I'm going to make my money somewhere else, like AI. But here's the thing. Runes and Ordinals have actually incentivized miners to stay around, and it's actually worked because they've generated fees and revenue for these miners. And Bitcoin can be more than just a monetary transaction. In fact, it could still stay a store of value, but you can use the underlying technology of Bitcoin to do other things to keep the network alive, since it's a blockchain, because that's what it is. So basically, the real demand for Bitcoin block space is still there. And the network is being used for exactly what it was designed for: decentralization, no censorship, and open source. Op return is valid. As you see, it's still here today. Fungible tokens on L1, basically on Bitcoin L1, is the new thing. Ethereum saw that with ERC20 tokens, and that's why it did pretty well. So DOG, say for instance, what is like the top token, which is the top rune on Bitcoin, and is traded across many different centralized exchanges. And that just goes to show the maturity of the ecosystem, is that if you try to filter out runes or ordinals, specifically runes, it's going to be really hard to, because right now you already have massive tier 1 adoption, tier 2 adoption from exchanges. It's not going anywhere. And the consensus has spoken. Bitcoin Core maintainers explicitly reject restricting op return and restrict capping it. And this is why BIP-110 and aka the Bitcoin Knots community is an ideological minority attempting protocol capture. So we're all about data, and this is what I think you need to really focus on, right? You got to follow the numbers. Where does the data drive analysis go from? BIP-110 has just 0.73% of miner signaling in a difficulty period of 474, needing 1,106 more signaling blocks to reach the lock-in date by August 7th. The major pools have not signaled support, leaving the proposal well short of its activation threshold. So everything that you're seeing online regarding BIP-110 is just basically ex post. It's not really showing data. It's just showing people's emotions, people's beliefs. But that's not enough in terms of getting this pushed forward. You need data. You need data to push it forward. And feel free to freeze frame this if you just want to see the difference between the Bitcoin Core status quo to the Bitcoin Knots BIP-110 current standings. Even major industry leaders are rejecting BIP-110. So say for instance, let's look at Adam Back, who is the CEO of Blockstream. He says BIP-110 is an intentional liberal downgrade. It breaks user space, and the BIP freezes UTXOs, breaks mini-scripts, disables op-if, and disables upgrade hooks. Also temporarily soft forked is nuts. Then you have Jameson Loop, co-founder and CSO of Casa. BIP-110 is reckless and doomed to fail. During a chain split scenario, you should expect the entire ecosystem to grind to a halt as a result of the uncertainty around which fork will win and resulting double spend risk. Then you even have Michael Saylor, the executive chairman of strategy. He says the biggest risk is bad ideas driving intragenic protocol changes. And the reason he's talking about this is because he publicly supported and backed Ordinals back in 2003, arguing miners must support long-term and Bitcoin needs applications to scale to 8 billion people. He frames BIP-110 style changes as Bitcoin's greatest self-inflicted risk. Then you have Wang Chung, remember the co-founder of F2 Pool, which I mentioned, which is one of the miners that are not supporting or even signaling 1110. He says there's no way we'll signal 1110, basically. And when you look at the consensus health, you can see on the right-hand side, these are the people that are for BIP-110. people in the middle are neutral, and then people on the left are against BIP-110. And as you can see, even the people that are neutral are kind of leaning more towards op return, Bitcoin Core. But I will say not all these people like runes or ordinals. Actually, a majority of these people are actually against BIP-110. Now, here's the conclusion and closing take. There are only two paths, but in the end, there's only one ledger. Runes and ordinals continue to drive record on-chain activity and post-halving fee revenue. BIP-110 remains well below the threshold required for activation. So Bitcoin's direction is ultimately set by economic activity and node-level consensus, not by any single proposal, which is 1 out of 4. The numbers are public, track them, and draw your own conclusions. So this is why I want to make this presentation, because a lot of you have been asking, are Bitcoin runes at risk of Bitcoin knots or BIP-110? Well, based on the data that I've shared with you, what do you think? And I cannot wait to read them. So smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to join us on X to receive all of our alpha calls and updates regarding Bitcoin Core, Ordinals, runes, and everything that's happening within the Bitcoin ecosystem. Until then, see you guys girls next time.